What's going on, y'all? It's your favorite DFW realtor, Mr. Still, coming at you again with some interesting information. Today, I want to talk about cash flow properties and how to use some free platforms like Zillow to locate some cash flow properties and what you should be looking for if you are looking for a potential rental property. And this is something I do with a lot of my clients. It's really easy that you can do as well. You don't need to be a real estate agent, and you can completely utilize all of the tools that Zillow provides for free to get an idea of what you should be looking for, how to calculate your payment, and then a few other points that I'll make, and a few other caveats that I think are going to be important that Zillow doesn't do as good of a job at, and I want to make sure I cover those as well. First and foremost, this is not legal advice or financial advice. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you find this helpful or valuable, please like and subscribe. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at what I am talking about, okay? So let me just share my screen. And so what I've done is I've just typed in Zillow Homes in Fort Worth, and then I'm just gonna click this link. And so I just kind of get to the map. Now, I typically look all around DFW, so I'm just going to remove this boundary right here. And then I'm going to kind of just browse around, right? You can kind of just poke around as you get familiar with areas. Maybe you're working with a realtor who can kind of point you in a general direction on really good rental properties, etc. Typically, what I always advise is a good bet is a 3-bed, 2-bath house. And I typically also advise against second stories or third stories. Just a single story is a safe bet. Now, if you were to find a really good deal, of course, no big deal on the second story. But the reason for that is obviously when you have a second story and you have any kind of like flooding issues, so you have an unruly tenant who maybe, clogs a toilet, floods a bathtub, whatever, and then they don't routinely clean this up or, use a dehumidifier or whatever, this is, the water can just run down, and the amount of damage is just the potential for damage is higher. The water's running down through walls and floor and ceiling and stuff like that. So in a single story, it kind of minimizes the risk of water damage and things of that nature. But obviously, if you were to find something that's a second story, a third story, and it's just an excellent deal, like the price is just right or the location's really good and the price is good, I wouldn't say don't go for it just because it is a second story, but you should just keep that in mind when you are looking at properties and understand that the second or third stories will just come with a little extra risk. But for the right price in the right area and the right product, definitely still worth it, but just something to keep in mind. So let's just kind of poke around here and take a look at a few properties. So this is the Fort Worth area, and a really good rental area is the North Richland Hills, Watauga, Richland Hills area. These are really close to some pretty nice areas, Summerfield, Heritage, Keller's up here. These are great areas, and Richland Hills and Watauga is also still pretty nice, but it's just more middle class, reasonable middle class. It's not anything super fancy, just pretty decent neighborhoods, reasonable. I mean, there's still some expensive homes, but as you can see, there's a lot of homes under 300,000, which that's pretty reasonable in the DFW area. It's getting to the point where it's almost impossible to find anything under 200,000 that is like move-in ready and habitable. It's expensive here, guys. It's gone up a lot in the last few years thanks to COVID and all the influx. I do think prices are going down and the deals are all starting to pop up, so that's the good news. But let's kind of dive in a little bit. So let's just go with this one. I think I looked at this one earlier, and I thought this was like a potentially really good property, especially if you could get it for the right price. Now, I will say, full disclosure, I'm not crazy about the renovations, but the good news is it does have renovations. The bad news is it does have renovations. So if you were wanting to add value yourself and you're a bit of a handy person, you can do some of the work yourself. Well, that's a great way to add some value, add some equity, and not have to spend as much money because you can do the work yourself. In this case, though, it looks like someone's mostly done the renovations for you. I'm not a super crazy big fan about the floor, but all in all, it's not bad. I think this floor would have looked probably better throughout the entire property, but in general, this is a pretty nice place. Looks like granite counters and appliances. Like, all you really need to do is put some succinct stainless steel appliances, an oven, a stainless steel fridge, and it's going to really kind of complete the look. And again, the bathrooms are all done, and you've got a pretty decent backyard here. And again, this is a rental property. This is for tenants. So, a husband and wife, maybe a boyfriend and girlfriend, maybe some friends who are living together, maybe a husband, wife, and a kid or two. These are going to be, fairly ideal tenants. And a backyard is also pretty appealing. And so I kind of look at this and I go, okay, good. 3 bed, 2 bath, not too small, 1,300 square feet, pretty reasonably sized home. It's not just super tiny. And all in all, good area, would make a good rental, good curbside appeal, has a backyard. So let's scroll down. So 38 days on the market. So that's starting to tick up a little bit. And that's good news for you if you're looking to make an offer. So all in all, not a bad property. So the first thing I want to do is, if I think this might be a good property, what I want to do is I want to calculate what your mortgage is going to look like and on the financing side. And so this isn't perfect, but you can use a mortgage calculator here on Zillow. And let's just assume you buy it at the asking price, okay? And I'm going to do asking price, 20% down, 7% interest rate to kind of account for relatively most people in this environment, where, if you have really, really good, you can still get kind of under 7. You can buy down, you can even get close to 5 or under 6. But, you're basically paying that interest early if you buy down, full disclosure. So something that's really important is, actually, let me just refresh this page, because I want you to see what it's exactly going to look like. So I'd already plugged everything in, okay? So this is something you have to watch out for on Zillow. It's going to give you like all of the best settings and most like best case scenario. And so if I just plug in my price, my payment's looking really good, really favorably, like, wow. But we're going to have to make some changes, okay? One of the first things is this is like ideal interest rate right now, 800 and whatever Beacon score credit, amazing credit. Let's assume you don't have just like balling credit. You're just okay. Let's do a 7% so we can kind of encapsulate more people and, give a broader, stroke of the brush to include more people. Okay. Another thing you need to do is you need to Google the property tax percent in your county or parish, or depending on what state you live in. But this is wrong. Zillow is almost always wrong on calculating the property taxes. And I've already got it pulled up here for us. This is in Fort Worth, in Watauga. And so the, property tax percent is 2.26. So they've got it at 0.5%, 2.26. And honestly, it could vary a little bit more, but let's play it safe. So look at that. That changes it a lot. It is a lot higher now that I've got the appropriate tax percent in there based on the county. You can just Google it, okay? Now, home insurance, that looks a little low to me too. Let's play it safe. Let's put $3,000 in here. And just for the sake of the argument, we're just going to assume there is no HOA. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. It could be a lot. It could be a little. Let's just assume, just to make my life a little easier, no HOA. So now we kind of have an idea of what this payment's going to look like. We're looking at $2,123 if we were to buy this property at $260,000. So the next thing you want to do is you want to open up another page, same thing you did before, okay? This is the exact same page that I had opened up here before I clicked on, okay? I'm keeping this property up. And what you want to do is you want to find that property. So you want to zoom in, and you want to find that area where the property is you're interested in. So here it is. And then you want to change from for sale to for rent and hit apply. Now what I'm doing is I'm looking in this area for all of the active listing rentals to kind of get an idea of what houses in this area are renting for. Now, this isn't their going rate once they get a tenant in. This is what they're advertising. So, give or take, right? You might actually negotiate a little bit more if get an off-market tenant or something, or someone comes knocking. You might negotiate a little less. Someone might negotiate you down. But this is going to give us a good idea. And then what we want to do is we want to look at a few of these properties to start getting an idea of what do these properties look like. See if we're comparing apples to apples. So here's a property. Not renovated at all, but a little bit bigger, one extra bedroom. And this one's going for $1,900. Say the backyard's maybe a little smaller. So I would say on average, this is a slightly less calibered property just because it's not renovated. It'll still rent, obviously, and it's a good house. But It's not a good comparison. Let's kind of keep looking, see if we can find something better. Uh, this one, it's also a bigger property. The pictures don't do it justice. It doesn't look great. The pictures are dark and dingy, poor lit. You know, guys, good photography goes a long ways. You know, you can spend $100, couple $100 for a professional photography company that does real estate. Just Google like real estate photography company in your area. You'll find them, and usually like at most a few $100, and they'll make really good photos. That sucks. And they're renting for 1950, but the photos kind of suck. The house overall looks good from the outside, but the inside photos do not look good. So I'm looking for something I can compare. So outside's not great on this one, but okay, now we're getting to similar renovation here. So it looks like we have granite countertops. We've got some stainless steel appliances. This is maybe even cheaper style floor, but at least new floor, probably new paint. That fixture looks old, but overall, we're starting to get to similar renovation. And this one's actually really close. This is a 3-bed, 2-bath, just like ours, and it's actually a little bit smaller. And the one thing I see is I don't see a good picture of the front, so I don't know what the yard looks like, but I assume the curb appeal is not great since they're not advertising it. And I didn't even see a photo of the backyard. So we might have a better, I mean, you can kind of see through this window, but it doesn't really give you, I don't know how big this backyard is. So this is probably the closest like kind property we have to compare to. And this one's advertising rent for 2,200 a month. And we have a little over 100 square feet on this property. I would say exterior wise and interior wise, we're just a little bit better on our property too. Again, I think overall this property just has better curb appeal, looks a little nicer. Everything's maintenance. The photography was better done. This is going to advertise better. So, I mean, I would estimate you could probably rent this out for a little bit more. And based on the market area, probably at the higher end of that market, which looks to be probably around $2,300. And then as you go out and you stay in this market, I mean, clearly there's a higher ceiling than just 23. Here's one for 4, 23 again, 27. Actually, you're kind of easing into other subdivisions and other areas, but you get the point, right? You know, so we're familiarizing ourselves with the area and we're trying to get an idea. So even though I think I'd probably recommend to market it at 23 right now, let's say 22 just to be safe, just like this one, even though I think we have a better product if we were to buy this house. So now we know, okay, our payment's going to roughly be 2,100 and change, and we can probably rent this thing out for around 22. So already, right at face value, this isn't an awful deal, but it's kind of a wash. And that's not ideal. You know, you really want a cash flowing property, and let me explain why. Because you don't want to just pay and cover your monthly expense to be able to service the debt, but every year you're going to owe some taxes. And like I said, make sure to get those taxes right, because that number changed a lot. It was like 1,100 and change or something, and or 17, or I don't even remember, but it was less than 2 grand, and now it's almost 6. So you definitely want to estimate appropriately with things like taxes, because you don't want to go overboard or underestimate, because then you're going to find out, oh my God, like this is way more expensive. Because you know, you buy this property, you're renting it out, and you're renting it for 200. You're servicing your debt every month, but then at the end of the year, you got to find 6 grand. So you're losing 6 grand. You're at a 6 grand loss on this property. And also make sure I didn't go over this because I already had it pulled up, but make sure the advance bar, you go through the advance and you add all these things, because if you just leave it in the simple mode, you're not going to be able to integrate anything past interest rate. And you really want to make sure your property taxes are right. And also on the homeowner's insurance, you don't want to underestimate on that, because, you know, buying a rental like this, yes, you're going to do a lot of things to ensure that your butt's covered, but home insurance is important. You know, if the big things go out like a roof and you needed a roof, you don't want to pay for a new roof. You just want to pay for a deductible. You know, let that insurance take care of that. But all in all, this isn't already a bad deal. But if I was working with an investor at this point, I would probably not recommend buy it. I think you need to negotiate, and I think we're in a good market to do that. So let's start playing with the numbers. So let's say you negotiate them down 10 grand to 250. Okay. So now we're under 2,100. So things are getting a little bit better. So let's talk about the down payment. So I've got this at 20%, and that's pretty typical if you're a conventional investor and you're taking out a conventional investment loan and you're not going to be moving into the property and living in it. They're going to want you to put 20% down or more. Now, keep in mind, this will change your payment and it will go up if you go this other route. And I can go over this in another video, but there are a lot of awesome, excellent programs where if you're willing to move into the home temporarily and live there for a certain amount of time and then move out and rent it out, you can actually acquire the home with far less money down, going like FHA or first time home buyers, or just even conventional, and still just, again, buying the property to live in initially will allow you to put far less money down, which means you can acquire the asset with a lot less money down. Now, that will make this payment go up. For example, if I go to 3%, like on an FHA loan, your payment goes up, right? Now you're not having to come out of pocket a lot of money, so you get to keep some liquid in the bank if you got cash, you know, so that's the trade-off. But again, if you just want to be able to throw tenants in there right away, you want to be able to market this and not have to worry about, you know, someone finding out that you lied and you didn't move into the property, well then 20% down is going to be the route, okay? So keep that in mind. That's important. But let's play with the numbers a little bit more and talk about the future. So let's say you really start getting into the neighborhood of a good deal on this property. Let's say you get it for 240. I think 240, 245 is a good deal. You know, and in this market, let's just do 245. No, let's do 240. All right, so now we're roughly at 2,000. So if you get them, and I mean, getting a property $20,000 down right now is not insane, especially if this were to sit, you keep your eyes on this thing. It's already at over a month. And properties are going 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, some 5 months, which is insane. But, you know, if this property gets to 70, 80, 90 days, these sellers are going to be sweating. And, you know, you might be shocked. You might get this for 10, 20, 30 under asking. Just lowball them. Shoot in the offer. Doesn't hurt. Let's say you get it, okay? So now we're looking at this. And let's say you stomach this interest rate, because I think this is the strategy. Right now, we're entering the season to buy, and you as a buyer have negotiating power, and you're starting to see homes sit and prices starting to decrease a little bit. Sellers are becoming more reasonable. So you can make these lowball offers, and you might just get them. I think strategically, you're working with a realtor or you're working with yourself, and you're just making sure you're doing all the work and the research and, you know, checking all of the, you know, information and making sure everything checks out and your numbers make sense. Then you're making these strategic lowball offers, and eventually someone's going to bite. And let's say this person does. So now you get this property at 240. It's 2,000 a month. You know, you can rent it out for 2,200, maybe more. And you're taking that 7% interest rate. And let's say, you know, and I hear you, oh, I don't want that 7% interest rate. It sucks, Colin. You know, it was threes and under and the twos. Gosh, this 7% is killing me. It's making my life difficult. I hear you. But check it out. As the new administration gets in office, as the election cycle comes to an end, it doesn't matter which administration wins, they're going to print money, guys. And we already know the feds are reducing rates. We already got one 50 base points drop. We may even get another one before the end of the year. But we definitely know the projections for 2025 show several drops. And I don't think they have a choice. I'm pretty confident we're going to see those interest rates come down. And probably the end of next year, 2025, 2026, we're going to start seeing a lot more favorable rates. I would not be surprised at all to see in the fives. So let's say you go and buy this property now and you rent it out, okay? Well, you win on the front end on price. You save yourself, you know, a few $10,000. That's a good deal. And if you refinance once interest rates go down, most of that interest you're never going to realize. You're never going to pay anyway. So if you can win on the front end by stomaching a higher interest rate that a lot of people aren't willing to do, you can win on the front end and you can win on the back end because you can't renegotiate price. So now is the time to get better deals on price. And probably for the next few months, probably at the short term, we're going to see better deals on price. Long term, I think interest rates are going to come down. Printers are going to go burr. Prices are going to go back up. And you're going to wish you had gotten and jumped on these deals while sellers were reasonable. And then you wait a year, you wait a year and a half, you wait 2 years, you refinance, you capitalize, and you get that better interest rate. So you get a 5.5. All right. Now we're starting to talk. Now we're starting to get in the money. This thing's starting to cash flow now. Okay. And again, by the time you refinance, you're probably renting this out for more, right? So let's say, you know, in a year, you haven't refinanced yet, but your lease is up with the tenant, you get a new tenant. rent goes up, man. So now you're renting probably 2,300, 2,400, and then let's say another half a year goes by, it's a 6 months lease, you get another tenant, and now you're renting for 2,450, okay? And a year and a half from now, 2 years from now, that's not a stretch. You could definitely be renting for 2,400, right? And so then when you do the refinance in a year and a half, 2 years, you're probably going to owe a little less than this 240 that you originally financed. Not a lot, because most of your first payments are pretty much all getting eaten up by interest. Let's say you've been on point, maybe you didn't even make any principal payments, but you should. But let's say you didn't and you've just been making your payments. So let's say you owe like, I don't know, like 235 or 230, and that's when you refinance in a year and a half, 2 years from now. Okay, so now we're under 1,800. So you refinance at 5.5% interest. Now your rental payment or your mortgage payment to service the debt on this asset that you got, it's 1,784. Let's say you're renting it out for 2,400 a month. Let's say 2,450, okay? Ugh, had to be that number. All right, 2,460 because 2,440. 2,440 because I refuse to see that number. Jeez, what an awful number. All right. I'm okay, so $656 of cash flow. That's solid, guys. That's solid. So now we're starting to get in the money, okay? And this is good. On an annually basis, you're bringing in almost 8 grand. So now you're servicing your debt every month. The tenant is paying for your debt. You've got more than enough money to cover your yearly taxes, and then a little bit of money left over. And typically things don't break every year. That's the good thing. And if you do a good job, you get a good inspector. I've got a great inspector. I've got few. You check the foundation, make sure your AC unit's not ancient, your water heater's not ancient. If any of these things do come up during your option period, well, then you renegotiate. And you should have a good, if you're not good at that, that's what a good realtor is for. Now, there's plenty of crappy realtors who aren't good at negotiating, but that's the point of making sure you work with a good realtor. A good realtor is worth every dime, and then most realtors aren't worth any dimes. So get a good realtor. Make sure you've found someone who knows what they're talking about, knows how to operate, knows how to negotiate, knows how to be professional, and is willing to put your interest before their own. That's called being a fiduciary real estate agent. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients to put your interest above our own. So I'm going to wrap this up because we've gone quite a bit over, but that's pretty much the gist of how you can kind of look in the areas using Zillow from the for sale to find properties, the for rent once you've found a property in an area to look in that area to see what properties are renting for, and then you just kind of pick around till you find like-kind properties that are similar to that one, and then you can get an idea of what you can probably rent that for. Then you use the Zillow mortgage calculator to calculate your payment and get an idea. Again, not perfect. You're best off once all of these numbers are really kind of just being rolled around. You're best off calling a finance guy, a mortgage broker, a lender. And if you don't have one and you're local in the area, I'd be happy to get you in contact with one. But get a good lender who's willing to answer your calls and roll out round numbers, get you quick pre-approval so you can have quick, aggressive turnaround times on your offer. And they can really quickly, based on price and your credit score and all that, they can give you pre-approvals and give you an estimate on your payment that's probably going to be a little closer than the Zillow. But this is just to give you an idea so you can kind of start doing the math, start doing the numbers, and see what all this looks like. So this is what I always recommend for my clients who, again, I don't baby my clients, and I'm here to educate. I'm not here to keep people dumb so that, out of fear that they'll never, once they learn, they'll never work with me again. No, I'm here to add value. And, I believe that when you really do a great job and you don't move from a place of fear, people go, dude, I've learned so much from this guy. He's awesome. I want to work with him again. And they always come back. And so to wrap this up, I know I mentioned fiduciary responsibility as an agent, and again, that's really important. A lot of agents don't understand, and even if they do, they don't really practice that. It's hard to put your client's interest above your own. And let me give you an example of one time that I've done this. And again, not easy, but I was working with a client and a good friend, had a great house. It was like a 4 or 5 bedroom. Yeah, 5 bed, 4 bath. Excellent house. Beautiful house. But they wanted a pool. And so we looked for months. We were looking for a comparable house. They didn't want to step down in house. They just wanted something similar with a pool. But then they didn't want to spend an arm and a leg, and we were well over $500,000 at this point to find I think we were well into the sixes or sevens. And that was just above what they were really wanting to spend. And so, we looked and we looked and we looked. And I think if I hadn't said anything, if I hadn't done what I'm about to say that I did, I think eventually we would have probably found one and they would have just bought. And so you could tell they were stretching themselves thin. We kept having to step up on price. It was inevitable until they finally just pulled the trigger on something. But I sat down with my clients and my friends, and I said, "Hey, how much equity do you think you have in your home? What do you owe?" And we talked about it, and I said, "I think you might have." I pulled comps. I said, "Here's what I think it's worth. What do you owe?" And they're like, "Really? You think it's worth that much?" And I go, "Yeah." And I go, "Have you considered doing a cash out refinance to just pull equity out of your home and build a pool with the home that you have now?" And they go, "No, we had not thought of that." And I said, "You should look into that." And I got them in touch with one of my lenders, and bada bing, bada boom. That's what they did. And I didn't make a dime. I didn't make a dime. I didn't make any commission. I didn't make any money. I would have been better self-serving my interest to keep pushing them to buy a home. So I would have made a commission. But that's not being a fiduciary agent, okay? The best thing for them that cost them far less money was to just pull out some equity. So they only are actually spending money on the pool that they want when they already have the house that they want, rather than having to compromise, step way up in house, in price, in debt to find a same caliber home that has a pool that they want. And so they just pulled out some equity out of their home and built the pool. It was a beautiful in-ground saltwater pool, really looked great in the backyard. And that's how it happened. So that's what fiduciary responsibility is it's putting your client's interest first before your own as an agent. And again, I think it's hard, man. Once money gets involved, especially with baby agents or new agents or struggling agents, that are doing this full time, you might go a long time without a paycheck in this industry and you might be sweating, man. And so it's hard to, in those moments, put your clients first, but you should. You have a legal obligation to have that fiduciary responsibility to your clients, but it's really an honor-based system. And it's really hard to hold agents or prove these kinds of things. It's just important that you find and vet a actually decent person who is an agent, and they stand on their morals, they have good ethics. And, again, I like practicing from not a fear and a lack of mentality. I think when you give, you get back. And, whether you think it's God or karma or the universe. I think that when you move and do business the right way, it always comes back to you. And honestly, you can just sleep better at night, man. There's no amount of money that is worth, selling yourself or your ethics or morals or compromising or doing anything like that. So that's my thoughts on that, guys. Sorry I went a little over, but yeah, if you are looking to obtain a rental property and wanted to kind of have an idea of what you should be doing, this is a great opportunity and great tool to use for just looking around in an area you're interested in and getting an idea of what all of this needs to look like. And you can play around with the houses priced in your area, what you think you might want to, and that way you can really do this to formulate an offer, right? So if, I want this house and it's priced at 260 and I can rent it out for, 2,300, 2,200, 2,100, and my payment's going to look like, blah, 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 2,100 or whatever, then, this is what I need to do. So, if I make an offer of 240 in the climate that we're in right now, okay, and I take a 7% interest rate, and I put 20% down, here's what I can expect my payment to be. And then, if I'm willing to stick with a wash property for a year or two and stomach these property taxes, I can eventually set myself up into an even better scenario where this is a straight cash flowing property that's not only servicing, because this is something that I see a lot where people jump in and they get big eyes and they don't really think through these numbers. And even when they think it's a good deal and they can rent it out for what their monthly payment is going to be, they don't take into consideration a lot of these other factors. And so you don't want it to just cash flow enough to service your debt. That's not cash flow in my opinion, right? It's just servicing the debt. You want it to cash flow enough to also pay your property taxes. And again, that's still not cash flow. You have to service your debt, maintain the property, pay the property taxes, and then what is left over is cash flow. And the last and most important thing, and I hope you stayed till the end, because this is really the secret sauce of the whole scenario, is you want the property to service the debt, pay the property taxes, and you want it to be able to have some extra cash flow to build a nest egg, preferably in an LLC account that is separate, that is just for managing this property, preferably a series LLC here in Texas, that is dedicated just to this property. That is, and that way, if anything, as you're accruing that cash flow, if you're making an extra $400, $500, $600, $800 a month cash flow, that money goes into an account. That way, when anything breaks, washer breaks, hot water heater breaks, whatever, if you don't have a warranty, for the little stuff, you have the cash in the bank to maintain the property. Now, the big stuff like the roof and stuff, that's where the insurance comes involved. And then here is the secret sauce, okay? So you're like, okay, well, I'm confused, Colin. I'm not making any money yet. My money's all going to the debt, and it's going to the property taxes every year, and then it goes into an account to take care of the property. When do I get to make money? Here's when you get to make money. Here's what I would, recommend. Again, not financial advice, but I prefer, and I see a lot of real estate investors do this. They do cash out refinances. Okay. And so every few years, you're going to build up equity as the amount you owe goes down and the value of the property goes up. And so you have this double whammy effect where you're paying down the mortgage and the property's going up in value, right? And then this is your equity. This margin here is the equity, right? And as this gets bigger and bigger, every so many years, you can just do a refinance and you can pull out equity, cash, tax free because it's debt. And so a lot of the investors I work with, that's how they operate. They're not necessarily pocketing their cash flow every month. That is all dedicated to maintaining, servicing, and paying for the asset and taking care of it, making sure the asset is prime, taken care of, so it can stay in good condition, so it can appreciate and pay down the debt. So the tenant is paying down your debt, caring for the property, so the property's going up in value, the debt's going down, and then every so many years, you just do a cash out refinance, and you can pull out 20, 40, 60, 70, 80, 100, $200,000 of equity tax free. And as you accrue these real estate properties, you buy your first one, second, two, three, four, five, six, up to 10 under your personal name. Once you have 3, 4, 5 of these, you're basically having a property come up in equity every year that you're able to cash out some. And so you're able to pay yourself cashing out the equity, which is going to be debt free. And $60,000 tax free ain't nothing to bat your eyes at. And you can take that money and you can go get another property or 2 or 3. You can pump that into some of the other properties. You can take the missus out to a nice little beach vacation or to Europe. You can buy the dog a new dog toy. I love my dog. He's passed out next to me. So, this is all important stuff, guys. And this is kind of how my brain thinks and how a lot of the investors I work with think. And I wanted you to know you don't have to be an agent to kind of roll around with these numbers. You can do this stuff for free using the tools that is just provided for you on Zillow. And it's a great opportunity to kind of get an idea, get familiar with your market, what a property could rent for. That way, when you're shopping around, if you want to buy it, whether you're moving into it and going to live in it for a while and just want to rent it in the future, or if you want to buy it and rent it out immediately, this is a good method to kind of get some good ideas and estimates of what the property will rent for, versus what your mortgage and costs are going to look like to service it and take care of it and all of that jazz. So sorry for going over. I know this was a long video. I really hope y'all found it valuable. I'm really just trying to think of anything that could help you and all of the different things and conversations I'm always having with my clients that I think you will find valuable. And again, if you are in the local Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, and you are interested in working with a real estate agent and would like to reach out to me, I will be sure to add my real estate email in the description below, along with the channel's email as well, if you want to reach out to me with anything regarding the channel. If you made it to the end, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. If you thought this was valuable, please like and subscribe. I really want to try to grow this channel and see where I can take this. And I really do enjoy making these videos, and I'm starting to kind of catch a rhythm. And it's not only just fun for me, but if anyone is actually learning anything and getting some value out of this, that's great. And it makes me feel awesome. And if I get a little business out of it routed back to me for my real estate business, that's just the icing on the cake. So thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate y'all. And I'll see you next time. Peace.